What were you doing in 2006? If you're anything like me, you're in your last year at university, sitting in your pants and playing way too much Test Drive Unlimited on your Xbox, tearing up the roads of Hawaii in one of the first open world races. One of my favourite cars in that game was the B7 Audi RS4, just because it had great handling, four-wheel grip, and an epic V8 noise. It's taken me exactly 15 years to get to the stage where I can finally have a go in an RS4 for real.
Yes, all of my Xbox 360 dreams have come true, well at least this one. This is Audi UK's cherished B7 RS4 Avant. This was only made between 2006 and 2008 and they only made something like 1,500 of them, so this is actually pretty rare. And my god, is it a nice change from all the modern turbocharged stuff. So I'm going to take you for a walk around, take it for a drive and show you what makes this special and find out if it actually is special or if it's all rose-tinted Xbox goggles. Right, you'll have to excuse the sound of whoever's chopping up turkeys with a chainsaw over there. I think it's a tree surgeon gone a bit mad. Let's talk about the RS4's engine. Obviously, this is an all-aluminium 4.2 litre naturally aspirated V8, and this had a huge compression ratio for the day. It revved to about 8,500 RPM, slightly under. It had 420 horsepower, so it hit the magical 100 horsepower per litre, and obviously this ended up in the R8 with a different sump on it. So yeah, it's a pretty magical thing. Now if you're going to buy one of these now, you do need to be aware that these do coke up with carbon deposits in the engine, and it costs about £1,000 to clear them out, and that kind of tends to only happen if you use them around town lots. If you take it for a proper razz, you'll tend to clear it out and you'll be okay. And healthy ones of these do 0 to 62 mile an hour in 4.9 seconds, which was loads back in 2006. I mean, it's really quick, but now I had a Mini Club in JCW last year that did exactly the same 0 to 60 time from a 2 litre engine, but hey ho, this sounds better. Now Audi did have a V8 powered S4 at the time of this, but only made about 350 horsepower, and this engine was really quite different. It had different pistons, different conrods, a different crankshaft, new cylinder heads, and a totally different exhaust system to flow all that extra powerful gas out. We'll look at the exhausts in a bit. But anyway, let's take a quick trundle around the rest of this majestic beast. Yes, I know I don't normally start with the engine, but I thought it was important to on a car like this. So yeah, in terms of looks, what probably doesn't come across on video is how dinky this is by modern car standards. I had a Dacia Duster in at the same time as this, and when I parked them back to back, it felt like the Duster was wider. This is only 1.8 meters wide. You can almost cuddle it from behind and touch each corner of it, but still, it looks marvelous, doesn't it? You've got the iconic RS4 hexagonal grille, the RS4 badges. All UK RS4s got bi-xenons as standard. You've got these punched out arches, and the track is actually something like 37mm wider than the S4 at the front, and almost 5 centimeters wider at the back. So it was certainly a much meaner looking thing. There was an optional sports pack for this, which I think this car has. I could be wrong, I don't actually know. And that kind of sat the suspension another 10mm low, and it was a lot firmer, and you got fancy seats and some other bits and bobs. All RS4s got dynamic ride control, and these weren't really dynamic dampers by today's definitions. They were hydraulically linked, so each opposing corner, so the front right and the back left, they were linked hydraulically. And the idea was, a bit like McLaren do, to decouple the ride from the, you know, performance-y bit of the suspension, technical terms. So basically it would be supple in a straight line and taut when you start cornering like a hooligan. Because this is Audi's one, this has only got 18,000 miles on it, ticked over yesterday to 18,000. It's got the super rare option of carbon ceramics. I can't remember how much they were when they were new, but they're very rare, and actually at the back, it's on standard steel brakes. It's pretty cool. You've got the RS4 badge down there. I just love the look of this. Obviously you've got the silver mirror caps. I kind of think car design has gone downhill a bit since this was made, but I'm being an old man. Now in terms of weight, this only weighs 1,650 kilos, which was quite a bit at the time, but that's actually the same as the new RS3 Saloon, and that's got less power than this. It does have more torque by about 80 Newton meters, but yeah, that just shows how car design has come on. The Quattro system in this was a big deal at the time. If you remember Jeremy Clarkson racing those rock climbers, I think he spoke about this on Top Gear back in the day. It sends 60% of the torque to the back wheels, which was unheard of for Audi. It was almost exciting, and actually you can feel it when you drive, and it's got a torque sensing differential in the center to divvy power up. Now obviously you get those big oval exhausts which have flaps in. Those flaps can get a bit sticky as these get older and older, so you might get a more muted response than you'd expect. And when you press the sport button on the steering wheel, it should get noisier. This one does, and I guess Audi looks after this very, very carefully. Now, the boot's a bit of a funny one because the saloon technically on paper has a bigger boot. That's 460 litres. This is only, I think, 440, but it's really plenty big enough, and obviously you can fold down the back seats and then the estate is much bigger. No spare wheel, but you've got, well, nothing under there apart from where I'm probably going to lose my microphones. I should get that out. Let's have a look at the insides. Now, the back seats in this are reasonably roomy, but don't go thinking it's going to be as big inside as the modern A4, because that is a much bigger car. But I'll hop in and show you how cramped it is, or not. Yeah, I'm all right in terms of interior space. I've got loads of headroom. My knees are almost touching the back of the optional wingback seats, which we'll talk about in a bit, but I think kids would be fine back here. And actually, this car does have ISOFIX. Now, not many manufacturers were doing ISOFIX in 2006. It was slowly becoming more and more accepted. But yeah, under there, you can stick a child seat in here and actually use this as a modern family car, which I would love to next year. But anyway, you've got a little carbon fibre penny holder there, I guess, or to hold your children's joints, whatever they're smoking at the moment. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the back. I've got electric windows, I've got carbon fibre, and I've got heads, room for heads. Anyway, let's go up front. Excuse the slightly wonky steering wheel. That was ripped straight from a Lamborghini Gallardo at the time, I think, pretty much, with an Audi badge on it. It's really minimal, flat bottom, one of the first flat bottom steering wheels I remember seeing back in the day. It's got a sport button there which sharpens up the throttle response, opens those exhaust valves, and I think if you got the regular seats, it did inflate the side bolsters of the seats slightly. Carbon fibre there. There are the plain dials. There's a little screen in the middle which you go up and down through the modes using those two buttons there. Revs to 8,000. It's pretty cool. And to be honest, I think in here, although it is very grey, so are modern Audis, so this actually feels reasonably current. The infotainment system, it's not a touchscreen, but this system lasted, God, 5, 6, 7 years in Audis. I had this in a TT back in 2012. So it was, yeah, it was a bit long in the tooth by then, but it has got sat-nav, and the screen flips out and up like that to change to sat-nav DVD, which has got a DVD drive in it. Yeah, I seem to remember you had to pay extra if you wanted to be able to put in 7-digit postcodes on these. But anyway, manual gear shift, which is lovely. It's quite a short throw. It's pretty light, and I would say the stem of this feels pretty plasticky when you're using it. Engine start button, so to start this, I'll show you in a bit, but you twist the key, put your foot on the clutch and prod that button. Manual handbrake, and that is pretty much it. I don't think it's very dated, apart from this weird wireless dildo holder or whatever it is. Rearview mirror has got a bezel on it, but yeah, so what? It's from 2006. Let's go for a drive. Right, in my dreams, I've just bought the RS4 from Test Drive Unlimited, although I think that game only had the saloon. But anyway, foot on the clutch, turn the key, and then press and hold this. And it turns over quite a bit before that V8 kind of rumbles into life. It's quite a deep noise. It's not an especially loud noise, even with the sport button pressed. So I see why lots of owners of these put Miltech exhausts on them, just to open up the valves a little bit and just make it a lot noisier. Right, anyway, off we go. We can talk about the boring bits very, very quickly. The view out is really good, especially by modern standards. The pillars are reasonably thin. The view out the back is just unreal. By modern standards, the C-pillar is basically not there. There's windows everywhere. The view out the back is really good. Big square window. And yeah, the next thing that strikes you is that this is quite a firm car. It's not awful, and the damping is very good, and when you're driving quickly, it pays off. And again, I don't know if this one is actually on sport suspension, but yeah, you feel at one with this, but it kind of has this effect of making it feel completely solid. There's my bag. It's completely, I don't know, it feels all of one piece. It feels like it's hewn out of steel. The steering is really direct and it's weighty, and I've forgotten how good a proper hydraulic rack can feel. It weights up really nicely in corners and all that kind of jazz. It's lovely to hold as well. The door mirrors are dinky. They're slim little things that you just don't get these days. You still get a good view out, but they don't hide cyclists. So I think if we want to save cyclists, everyone should buy RS4s. Gear shift is a little bit notchy between first and second when it's cold, but other than that, This is a really nice car to daily. Obviously it is a manual. If you want an automatic, go and buy a Citroen C4 or the tractor that's about to run me over. Is the Citroen C4 available in automatic? I have no idea. While we're doing the slow speed stuff, I just want to show you something. Big, naturally aspirated V8. I'm going to do 30 miles an hour. I'm going to put it in 6th gear. Yeah, and I'm going to put my foot down and it goes. It gently pulls away with this sense of the big thug under the bonnet tugging you off down the road. So yeah, it's just nice. You can really blip your downshifts as well. Right, we'll talk about the speed in a bit when we get to twisty roads, but first a tiny little practical bit of dual carriageway stuff, because you have to do dual carriageways when you own an estate, don't you? When you're taking your grandma's chest of drawers to the dump after she left it to you in her will, you decided you don't like it, or her, and now it's going to the tip. Anyway, dual carriageways. Repressed memories there. Right, I'm about to go from a 50 limit up to 70 miles an hour, down to 4th, 3rd, no fuck it, 2nd. 2nd in this will take you well north of 60 miles an hour. It's not particularly long geared. 8,000 RPM, that's 70. I actually got to rev that engine out without breaking the speed limit. It's not like these modern turbocharged engines that just smash through the speed limit. This does, but it takes a little longer to get there. Now I'm cruising at 70 miles an hour in 6th gear. I'm pulling 3,000 RPM and it's reasonably quiet. There's a bit of old school tyre noise from those fat tyres, not any wind noise really, and the steering is yeah, it's not particularly light, so it's not the most relaxing thing. It does follow cambers in the road, but you know, modern cars have got lane keep assist that tries to crash you into other cars anyway, so it's just an older version of it, isn't it? Anyway, some other sensible things. I've been getting about 22, 23 mpg out of this, but it does dive below 17, 18 when you start thrashing it. But yeah, it'll do about 350 miles on a tank if you take it easy. But that's boring to talk about. Let's get to twisty roads, make some noise and go around some corners to see if it's all understeery and Audi-ish like the internet would have you believe. Right, I'm about to go from about, let's go from 10 miles an hour to 60, 1st gear. That's 60. Anyway, yes, it feels pretty blooming quick. I imagine a modern Golf R would be just as fast and probably feel faster because of the turbocharged torque. But this is no slouch. You end up wringing its neck to get to that 8,000 RPM red line because it sounds amazing, because you're using a manual gear shift, you want to get there, and then you want to slow down again and do a perfect heel and toe. The throttle response of that V8 is so sharp, it's brilliant. I've driven the same engine in a V8 R8, and I think the throttle response on that is even sharper. I think it's got a different flywheel or something, but this is no slouch. And just putting it in 4th and putting your foot down, it just takes you off down the road, and the acceleration builds in quite an exciting way. It's just such a different feeling from anything turbocharged. The noise is pretty muted in here, to be fair, but this is going to be on a standard exhaust. Why am I taking this corner in 2nd gear? So I can feel the torque split as it pushes me out of the corner. Those carbon ceramic brakes are okay, they're not great, there's not much feel through the pedal, but early carbon ceramics like these were never the best, but they'll certainly stop you in a bloody hurry. Ooh, slight weave under braking there. Yeah, the electronic systems on this are a bit old school, they're quite intrusive, and you do get the traction control kicking in a fair bit, certainly in 1st and 2nd gear. But anyway, that was fun, so I'm going to do it again. How's the turning circle? It's very good, there's no nasty chattering as we go round. But anyway, enough of that. Let's have more noise. Little woofles on the upshift, all completely natural, I would have thought. No electric trickery. Now, you can get this to understeer if you go into a corner just too fast, because that engine is still quite far out over the front axle. I know at the time Audi said they moved it back much further than in all their previous cars, but it's still nearly all of that engine's in front of the front axle, not behind it. So yes, you can get it to understeer, but if you lift off, it sorts itself out and you can get it to rotate slightly. And when you boot it in the wet, going around a corner on the power, it will do dainty little drifts, which is quite nice, but it just feels neutral for the most part, and it's actually a really, really enjoyable car to drive quickly. I love it. I really, really love it. So much of it's down to that engine, those brakes. I wish they were a bit better actually, even though they are carbon ceramic, because you do end up going really fast. But anyway, that's probably enough about driving this old legend. It is really such a good driver's machine, especially in the context of modern cars. That engine, I love it. I'm sure an E90 M3 revs a bit higher and it sounds a bit more racier and it does 100 miles less to a tank of fuel. The C63 is going to have more grunt and obviously an automatic gearbox and probably a much better noise as well, but there's something about this as a package that I really, really like. It's a nice mix of driver involvement, everyday usability, four-wheel drive safety, and yeah, I'm going to go to the pub now and celebrate this legend. Back to you, Tim, for an outro. So in conclusion, was I right to meet one of my heroes and drive the B7 RS4? Yes, very much so. This, in 2020 odd, whatever the year is now when you're watching this, is still a fantastic car. That engine is thrilling. That manual gear shift's so satisfying. It's just a recipe you don't get these days, yet it still feels really fast. And it's small enough that you can really make the most of this on UK roads. A modern RS4 is getting quite big. This feels nimble. It's quite agile as well. I was surprised. The thing that impressed me the most really is the way it feels when you get on the power out of corners. You really sense the rear biased four-wheel drive system. You can have a lot of fun. Sure, you can get it to do that classic old Audi understeer thing, but it's adjustable if you lift off the throttle and you can play with it. So yeah, really impressed. I love the noise, I love the looks. I think it's just one of those iconic cars. And if you want to buy one now, I'd say go and do it before the prices go even sillier than they currently are. Anyway, hopefully that was helpful, vaguely entertaining or whatever. If it was, hit like. If it wasn't, also hit like. Do subscribe and call me Ein schnelles Wurst in the channel. I probably got my German cases wrong then. But anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time when I won't be with one of the best cars Audi has ever made. Boo-hoo. There it is. Bye.